Hi class, I'm happy to be with you today. Today we are going to be working Quick Study 10-4 and 10-5 on page 465 and 466 of your Wild accounting text. As I discussed in the narrative, the interesting thing about selling bonds is it's kind of like selling stock to investors, except what you're really doing is you are getting individual investors to loan your company money, and you owe them interest. And that interest is a fixed amount, and it's based on the stated rate times the par value, or sometimes it's called the face value of the bond, is the interest that is actually paid. Sometimes interest goes out once a year. Most of the time it goes out twice a year. Okay? So let's take a look at problem 10-4. It says that we've got 10% 15-year bonds with a par value of $240,000. Okay? Now, here's the deal. These bonds will never actually be bought by investors for $240,000. They will be bought by some amount that makes sense given whatever the current market rate is for this level of a bond, the level of risk associated with this bond. So, in this problem, it says that the current market rate is 8%. Well, if the market rate is 8%, investors don't deserve to earn 10% on bonds like yours. So your bonds are going to end up being sold for an amount that makes the investor actually earn 8%. Well, we need to build a little intuition here. So if my bonds are paying 10%, but people only deserve to earn 8%, then what do you think our bonds are going to sell for? Well, they are going to sell at a premium. Okay, they're going to sell at a premium. Because if you loaned us more money, our 10% calculation on 240 will work out to be 8% for you, including the fact that you will get $240,000 back from us at the end of the 15 years. Okay? So first, we are just going to record the issuance of this bond based on exactly the information the problem gives us. And the problem tells us that the bonds were sold at 117.25, which means they were sold at 117.25%. So I'm going to take 240,000 times 1.1725. That works out to be 281,400. So our journal entry to issue these bonds is that we're going to get cash from our investors of 281,400, and we are going to have bonds payable of 240,000. That's the stated value of the bonds, the face value of the bonds. To make this entry balance, I'm going to record a premium on bonds payable. Okay? And that would be, looks like, 41,400. Okay, as I explained to you before, we're going to focus on issuing bonds, paying interest, and valuing bonds. Okay, if you will look at problem 5, QS 10-5, it says, well, they told you they got 281.4 for the bonds, but let's prove that. Let's prove that out by valuing the bonds. Okay, so here's how we value bonds. We value them based on the cash flow of the bond imposing the market rate of interest. onto the analysis. We are going to find the present value of the fact that investors are going to get interest from us twice a year for 15 years, and the fact that they are going to get $240,000 back from us in 15 years. What is the present value of getting that money in the future? That's what they would be willing to pay for the bond. Your book sets it up a little differently, so that'll give you flexibility. I'm going to show you how I like to set this up. I like to set up a table that has an event, a time period, a factor, and present value. Okay, if you will look at the tables, back in the back, you can use a financial calculator or you can use the tables in the back of your book. If you'll look in Appendix B, page 10 and 11, B10 and 11 has table B1 and table B3. B1 is the present value of $1. B3 is the present value of an annuity of $1. Okay? So, what we're going to do is we are going to figure out how to discount back to the present. And you're going to have to read carefully about this because I can't spend enough time on video with you to really explain this like I do with my seated class. I do a complete lecture on the theory behind present value, why it works. I prove it out a bunch of different ways. I can't do that with you, okay? So you're going to have to really read your book carefully. But the idea is that if the market rate is 8%, but we pay twice a year, then you get 4% twice a year. Okay, so we're going to use 4% as our market rate to find the present value of the fact that there are going to be interest payments of, let's see what it is, 10% times 240,000 is 24,000 divided by 2 because of twice a year means that I'm going to pay interest out to my investors $12,000 twice a year. So we're going to pay interest payments of $12,000 2 times per year for 15 years. 2 times per year for 15 years. So that's 30 6-month periods. 30 half years. Okay? 15 years. 30 half years. So if I'm using half years, then I use half the interest rate. Okay? Now, what I want to know is what is the value of getting $12,000 twice a year for the next 15 years. What is the value right now? That's what present value is. Well, if 4% is the interest rate, get your table out, your annuity table, and look up 30 periods, way down on the left, go down the left there, 30 periods at 4%. Okay, so you end up with a factor of 17.292. This has just done the math for you. You know, usually you probably learned in either calculus or statistics how to calculate present value using math. This has just done the math for you. So then I take 12,000 times 17.292 and I get a present value of 207,504. That is what it is worth today. So you would be indifferent as to whether somebody gave you 207,504 today or whether they gave you 12,000 twice a year for the next 15 years if 8% was the rate. If 8% was how much you could earn on your money. You wouldn't care if you had $207,504 today, or whether you got $12,000 twice a year for 15 years, which represents 4% twice a year. Okay? Then the other event that's going to happen is we're going to get the value of the face value of the bond. The face value of the bond will be paid at the end of 30 half-year periods. Since I'm using half-year periods up here, I have to think about it the same way. But this is a one-time event. So use table B1 and look up your 30 periods at 4%, and you will see that that factor is 0.3083. So $240,000 will be paid back to the investors. What's the present value of that? Well, it's $73,992. Isn't that amazing? This should be a great lesson to you on why to start saving for retirement early. You can all be wealthy people by the time you're 65 years old if you start early saving, because I am indifferent. As a rational economic person, I am indifferent as to whether you give me $73,992 right now or give me $240,000 15 years from now, if I can earn 8% on my money, okay, or 4% twice a year. So, voila, we end up with a value of these bonds of $281,496. So they issued them pretty darn close to what they are truly worth. Okay? That's it for that problem.